The phrase, "I have a dream," was made famous August 28, 1963. Some of us may remember that day. I unfortunately do not. My dad would have been like 26 days old. So I don't remember the day. But I have seen that speech multiple times. I've heard about it, I've watched it, I've listened to it. I've listened to it from a pastor's perspective, from a teenage perspective. I remember hearing it as a kid. And I can still envision him giving that speech in front of the Lincoln Monument out there, the mass crowd. You can just hear the roar of the crowd around him as he's talking. And just this booming voice that Martin Luther King Jr. had, carrying out the speech. And for some of us that maybe don't know the history behind it, that speech actually doesn't start out with, "I have a dream." That's not until about the third or fourth paragraph of his speech when he begins the part of, "I have a dream." So sometimes part of that is the way that our speech starts or the way our life starts isn't always the most important aspect that people remember. It's what we do later. That's something we can learn from that speech alone. But his dream was to end segregation. If you're not familiar with MLK Jr., that was his dream. End segregation. If you're young, you don't know what segregation is, particularly in the South, which I'm from Texas. My whole family's from Texas, so we were considered Southerners. That would be that if you were black or if you were white, you went to different schools. You would use different bathrooms. Everything was segregated. It was separated. So his dream was to end that. Is that, in part of his speech he says, "My dream is that one day my kids will be judged on their character, not by the color of their skin." And he never saw his dream. He never saw segregation, and he didn't see, his kids become prominent leaders within the communities and helping bring people together. He never saw any of that because he was murdered. He was killed before he had a chance to see his dream come to life. But sometimes it's called an antithesis. It's what would happen if he didn't have that speech that day. What if he didn't give that speech that mobilized and energized thousands and hundreds of thousands of people? What if he never expressed his dream publicly and just said, telling his friend across the table, this could happen one day, but never saying it to the masses? I think it probably still would have happened, but would have taken longer, would have taken, someone else stepping up and expressing their dream that they can envision. There's something about that speech to me that has always stuck with me, and one of the parts of it is that when he's speaking, he's giving the characterization of his dream of what he envisions. And I want to envision it, and I follow him through his dream. This is what I can see. For me specifically, I grew up after that generation, so it's hard for me to imagine what it was like during that time. I don't understand the process, what it was like to have that done. But when I talk to friends or relatives who were alive during that, obviously they're getting a little bit older in the years. My grandpa always says it's wiser now. He's getting wiser. He said eventually it might stop being wiser and start coming back. He said right now I'm still claiming I'm getting wiser. But remembering those years and seeing that, it's like I remember seeing in the news when the first school that ended segregation and them having the police escort people in. He's like, I remember seeing that. And he's like, I was a teenage boy, but just a young teenager, and I remember seeing it, and I remember seeing this is what was going on. And it's like, can we really today, sometimes after that dream has been fulfilled, we get beyond it and we no longer think about it. So it had me thinking about his speech, and I have a dream, and expressing it publicly. This week, we'll be looking at a different character. Last week we looked at, someone that's fairly famous, and his name was Joseph. And we'll look back at him here in a moment. But first, I want us to look at our series verse. This is the verse we're going to look at each of the 3 weeks. And it's Genesis 46:2. During the night, God spoke to him in a vision. Jacob, Jacob, he called. And Jacob's response, here I am. As we're here today, if God's speaking to you and he's speaking to you about different dreams or things going on, all I ask is that you stand there or you sit there and you say, here I am. By saying, here I am, he's saying, I am willing to do whatever you have me to do. I'm ready, tell me. If Kristen, calls to me, from the other room, I don't know if I'm getting bad in hearing or something. I think I listen to the radio too much, but I'll have to walk to the other room because I can't hear. And it's like, okay, here I am. What did you need? Let me go get whatever you want. For us with God, I want us to say, here I am. Do with me what you will. Ask me what you need to. Tell me what you want. Be willing to carry that dream and allow yourself to dream. I talked last week, I said, when you're a kid, people are like, dream big. Become an astronaut, become a doctor, become a lawyer, invent a new item, start a company. But when you're a 32-year-old saying that I'm going to become an astronaut when I grow up, or you're 65 and you're still saying, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, people kind of frown at you with that. For some reason, they kind of like, oh, this guy is kind of off his rocker. That's what we get. When you're a 32-year-old man, you're overweight, you're saying, I'm going to run in the Olympics one day, people don't believe you. It's a weird thing about that. So be willing to step back and dream. Don't worry about what others say. Don't worry about others think. I'm sure with Martin Luther King Jr., when he started out, when he started his ministry, when he started his speeches and his rallies, how many people said, it'll never happen? And there's plenty of people that said it'll happen over my dead body too. There's plenty of people that countered it. But it happened. Because he had a dream. So be willing to dream, even if it sounds crazy, even if it sounds too big. You're never too young and you're never too old to dream. We can still dream. There's no age limit to dreams. So last week, our focus was don't be afraid to dream big. I use this analogy and I'll use it again. If your dream is to get a Frosty after church today, you're dreaming small. We can dream a little bit bigger, and I'll make your dream come true. I'll buy you a Frosty. I'll have Ron do it. He's got a card. He'll get you a Frosty. But we can't be afraid to dream big, because when we dream big, it allows us to see bigger. It allows us to look at God and see how big He is. Sometimes when we dream small and we just look at the day-to-day and look at the minute-to-minute, we dream small and we look small, and it makes us look at God as He is small. So if we dream big, it makes our God big. It allows us to look at Him and see how big He truly is. Because I can promise you that never in a million years would I ever dream of creating stars, right? Or planets, or people, or animals. I've never been like, I'm going to go create something. That's never been my dream. It never has. But it was God's. So God's not afraid of big dreams. He's not afraid of doing big things. And we can look to that and be able to lean on it. So don't be afraid to dream big. This week, today, don't be afraid of God's dream for you. It's easy for us to think of our own dreams and be excited. I thought about this. Okay, so I'm a car guy. I thought about this way. Every car guy I know, he buys a car and he has a vision of what's going to happen to this car, right? I bought it, I'm going to put some new wheels on it, I'm going to lower it, I'm going to do this, tint the windows, I'm going to turbocharge it, I'm going to make it really fast, really loud. They have an exact idea. Maybe you're not a car person, maybe you like motorcycles, you kind of have a general idea. It's the same thing, if you buy a house, right? You buy a house, you have to envision the house, you using it, right? When you walk around the house, when you're looking to buy a house, okay, so this is the master bedroom. This would be our room. Okay, this is where this would go. This would be the kids' rooms. You have to envision yourself there, right? That's how you do that process. But with our own lives, most of the time, we don't have that vision, that dream, that process of, this is where I want to go. Most of the time, it's, man, I'm ready for Friday. 4:30 on Friday, I am out of here, and I'm not coming back till Monday morning. I quit every Friday and I'll come back on Monday. That's kind of the feeling that we have. And we look forward to that time. Or it's, looking forward to the football game on Sunday afternoon, or the college football on Saturday, or high school football. We look forward to the games. We look forward to just these small things most of the time. And we don't really plan forward. We don't allow ourselves to say, this is where I want to go. We don't write down goals. We don't write down ideas. But within that, by limiting ourselves, we limit God too. Because we're saying, I'm not going to think big. So then usually if something comes up, a big idea, you just kind of push it aside. Because you're like, oh, I have other things to do. Like, I'll get to that week when that week comes. And this isn't saying that you write down your life plan and this is exactly what you're going to do. Okay, so November 12th at 2:52, I'm going to do this. That's not what I'm saying, but having a general idea and a direction is helpful. At my work and my quote-unquote day job with the insurance company, when I started, and we got to meet other people that had positions within the company, and I remember talking to different ones, trying to figure out, where do I want to go next? I was in training for my first position, already planning, okay, I want to go here next. And then when I got to that job, it's okay, I want to go here, here, and here, so I can get to where I am. So I got from here to here to here to here really quickly, and now that I'm there, I have no clue where I want to go after that. Because I didn't plan that far ahead. Because I was thinking, okay, this is going to take years, and I've been there for over 6 years, but most people that, in my position, most people have been there 15 to 20 years, if not longer. Most people retire from the position that I'm in, and it's like, where do I want to go next? In our own lives, we have those different aspects. Maybe it's not with work, but maybe it's with home. Maybe it's with doing this part or doing that part. Maybe it's, I want to have my house paid off in 10 years, but then your house is paid off and you have no clue what you're going to do after that. Most of us, hopefully, save some money. Or if you're like other people I know, oh, okay, I paid my house off, now I'm going to go build a house. Paid one off, let's go get more debt. But we can't be afraid of what God's dream is. So we got to allow ourselves to look forward, but being open to looking forward. The scripture we're looking at today is going to be Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. It's a fairly familiar story of a guy named Moses. He's a fairly popular guy. Most of us have heard his name. Most of us might even know people named after Moses. I think it's a cool name, because I don't know any friends named Moses, so I think that works. But chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Exodus cover a lot of ground. So we basically start with the Pharaoh in chapter 1 makes a decree saying, I want to kill all Hebrew boys. All the newborns, kill them all because they're becoming stronger than us and they may overpower us and take over. So I'm going to send a message. That's what the Pharaoh is saying. I'm going to send a message. Well, Moses' mom, they're Levites, which means that they're part of basically their grandsons, they're of that family line of the person named Levi that's earlier in Genesis. So they're that group, and they see him, he's born, and they think, he's something special. I don't know about you, I've not had kids yet, I will in January, but I'm willing to say that when he's born, I'm going to look at him and say, he's something special. I've never met a parent that said, it's just a normal kid. He's something special. When the kid learns to talk, when they learn to walk, when they learn to read, when they learn to do these things, it's like, oh yeah, I love it with parents though, because they're in the 90th percentile. I don't know what that means. I think that means that they're in the top 10%. I'm like, I don't know why it's labeled that way. Or, they're in the 10th percentile. It's like, is that a good or a bad thing? So parents, if you're telling non-parent people that just know, I don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, next year I will be saying these things to you. So don't worry. So they see him and they're like, he's something special. So she hides him. And I don't know how they hide a baby. Babies aren't quiet. I do know that much. You don't have to be a parent to know babies aren't quiet. Babies aren't quiet. They hide them for months. And then we're going to put them in a basket and put them in the river and hopefully find somewhere safe to be. Which is actually following the decree, because according to the decree from the Pharaoh, they were supposed to throw the children into the river. So they didn't technically break the law. They didn't say that he couldn't put them in a basket before they put them in the river. So they followed the law. So Moses has an older sister, though. He's an infant in this basket, and she kind of runs next to the river following the basket. And sure enough, the Pharaoh's daughter, princess, as we might know her, sees the basket stuck in the reeds. It's in the tall grass outside the river. And she's there with her servants. Says, go get the basket. Bring it over here. Sees it's a baby. And then, it's baby, let's take care of it. The little girl, Moses' sister, is across from her, basically said, do you want me to find a woman to take care of her? Yes. So who did she go get? Moses' mom. So Moses' mom takes care of him without being in trouble. And then when he's old enough, basically, when he's no longer on breast milk, when he's, as having 8 puppies, we would say he's weaned. When he gets to that age, he goes back to the princess. And she calls him Moses, because that means out of the water. That's just chapter, basically, like 1.5. Moses then comes back. He's basically a young man at this point. And he knows that he is Hebrew. He knows that his people are servants. And it says that he's walking through one day. He's walking through where they're serving. He sees a slave driver, beating one of his fellow Hebrews so bad that he looks around, makes sure no one else is around, and he kills that slave master. He kills him. Then, because he doesn't want anyone to know what he did, he buries him in the sand. I do know one thing about sand, it blows away. So I'm not sure that was the greatest place to hide him, but I'm going to go with he's young, he's youthful. That means he's not wise yet, according to my grandpa. He's still building that wisdom. So he buries him in the sand. The next day he comes back, he sees 2 Hebrew men fighting and says, why are you fighting with your friend? And then basically, the Hebrew men do what, most men would do when someone else butts into their business. Are you going to kill us too like you did that guy yesterday? Who put you in charge? So, fearing that the Pharaoh found out, Moses runs away to a faraway place called Midian. He's there, basically meets his wife, meets his future father-in-law, then his father-in-law, and that's where we pick up in Exodus chapter 3. So like I said, a lot happened in 2 chapters. We are now looking at a more seasoned Moses. It is not the Moses who buries someone in the sand. This is a guy who's been working for a little while now. So we'll go ahead and pick up here in verse 1. One day, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. I would probably stare in amazement too. As being someone who likes fire, if you see fire burning and it's not burning up what it's in, you're going to be curious, right? So he's curious. He's standing in amazement. So he's wondering at this point. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see it. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, replied Moses. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? I feel like that's really familiar. Throughout the Old Testament, this is actually the exact phrasing used multiple times when God speaks to someone. Calls out their name twice. It's a proclamation, Moses, Moses, Jacob, Jacob. So he's calling out, and then he responds properly even. Here I am. And let's be honest, if you're standing in front of a bush that's not burning up and it's on fire, but it's not being consumed, and you hear the voice call out to you, your name, you're probably going to be like, I probably wouldn't have said anything, which is a shocker, probably, but been like, wait, what? Did that bush talk to me? It's God coming there, who is this talking to me that's controlling this? I would fill with more questions. He's just like, here I am. So he's apparently normal supernatural things happening to him at this point. Because that's not normal day to me. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, here I am, this is cool. I might be shocked, might pass out. He might, maybe he did. He maybe passed out and he woke him back up. Okay, here I am, yeah. But it doesn't say that. So he's okay with this. He says, here I am. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. Excuse me. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, now live. All the ites, they all live there together. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. So Moses is cool all the way up to this point. He's cool with the burning bush. He's fine with all of that. That's all right. But then Moses responds, and it says, but Moses protested to God, who am I to appear before Pharaoh? And let's just say Pharaoh is a relative of him that he grew up in the house with. So Pharaoh's not someone uncommon for him to be with. But who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? God answered, I will be with you. And this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. But Moses again protested. If I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? Remember, he didn't grow up with them. He wasn't raised with them. He was raised around them, but he was kind of living the good life in the palace, right? The rest of them were being driven by slave masters. He's, eating grapes and hanging out, and apparently has time to just stroll through where they're working while he's not busy. So he's like, you're going to send me to them. What should I tell them? God replies to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations. Now go and call together all the elders of Israel. Tell them, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. I have promised to rescue you from your oppression in Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where all the ites live. So Moses goes, protest twice what God's telling him to do. Hey, do this. Moses is like, no. Who am I to appear before him? And others says, I have a speech problem. I don't speak well. I don't want to talk to him. Right? Let's be honest. He ran away from that life. He ran away from what was there. And now God's telling him, I want you to go back. I want you to go back to the people. I want you to go back to the families. I want you to be there, and I want you to bring my people out. And Moses, even though he knows they're his relatives, he knows that they are truly his people, he sees himself as being isolated and abandoned by them. He says, your people. He doesn't refer to them as my people, my family. Like us, if it was your family that was in slavery and we were going to pull them out, we would say, God is sending us, my family won't listen to me. He says, but your family won't listen to me. Your people won't listen to me. That's where Moses was coming from. And let's be honest. I think most of us, if you've been called, if been asked by God to do something, you've probably responded in the same way. Case in point for me, when I answered a call to ministry, it took months for me to answer that call. You know why? Because I didn't feel I was adequate or I was capable or able to do it. The day I answered a call to preach, I was standing there in Seymour at the Nazarene Church, and I'm, it's a Sunday night service. There's probably 250 people there, and I'm standing there like third or fourth row back, and I'm like, okay, God, if you're really calling me to ministry, so-and-so will go to the altar and pray. That'll be my son. If you don't know me, I'm a big fan of signs. For whatever reason, I naturally fall that way. So that person immediately walks down to I was like, that's a coincidence. So the second person, God just sent them down. The third person, and then the fourth person. Then I get to the fifth person, I'm like, this person I have never seen at the altar. Never ever in my entire life have I seen him at the altar. If this person goes, God, I know for sure you are calling me. That person went immediately. This happened within a few minutes. Because normally, kind of like what Moses did, the first person goes, oh, well, God, I really just don't know. I'm rebutting to you're asking me to do this. I don't know. So the second person goes. Then the third. Then the fourth. By the fifth person, kind of like Moses, my arguments have gone void. They're no longer very strong. They're no longer very powerful. They're no longer holding me back. And I will say that this was probably my first time in my entire life I was speechless afterwards. I get up there, the senior pastor's like, he prays with me, even, which is not common when you're in that big of a church. What's going on, Kevin? And I tell him, and he's like, oh, that's great. Let's tell the church. And, so he has me stand up in front of everybody. Kevin, now tell him what you told me. I couldn't say it. And he's kind of like, he answered the call to preach. He's like, yeah. So people then go through and they're shaking my hand and stuff like that. And it was still one of the craziest moments of my life when I think back to it, and where I saw that God showed that this is what he wanted me to do. So if anyone knows pastors or knows people in ministry, there are hard days that happen and hard days that come. That's one of those times that I reflect back on when I start to question, am I really called to do this? Am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Yes. God showed me that voice. But something we see with Moses here is he answers that call. The first thing I think we see is that it's reviving the dream. Now I'm going to insert something that's not in the Bible, and it's not in commentaries, but this is my personal view of looking through Moses' story. So don't take it as scripture. This is just what I see and what I think is possible. So inserting that conjecture there. But what I see, though, when I look at the story of Moses, I see someone who kind of had the plush life, right? He was in the palace, but he's walking through and he says then, his people. He sees someone hurting one of the Hebrews, one of his people, and he has to respond. By his actions, I think that Moses had a dream to help his people. He probably had thoughts of maybe I was set apart, maybe I was put in this position, in this place, to do something. And as a young man, he's still trying to figure out what it is, and he sees someone that he can help. No one's around, no one will see, no one will catch him, and he wants to rescue at least just one person, because that's his desire. Because I don't believe that he would intervene with that one person, with that slave master, if he didn't have a desire to help his people, to help the Hebrews. Because if he didn't, they would be slaves. They would be basically the same thing as beating a donkey to them. To beating a camel. It's just a possession. But that's not how he viewed it. He saw his family. He saw people he loved. So I think originally Moses had a dream to set his people free. Moses had a dream to say, that they would come out of this and he would have a way to help them. Whatever way it could have been, but he wanted to help them. And like I said, I see that through his actions, because why was he walking through there? Because if you know anything about history, where they were working was not right next to the palaces. That wasn't where they worked. They were building, pyramids and monuments of people, but they're not building those right next to where they live. They're building them away, so it's a monument to represent. Part of it would be the Pharaoh would not want servants that work in the field in the house. Servants had particular jobs. That's all they did. You wouldn't want them in the house. You wouldn't want them near your property. You wouldn't want them on this part. That's not where they go. Because most of the time the servants lived within the same area where they were building the monuments. That's the Egyptian culture that they did. They weren't traveling miles to get there every day, but they were working. So he's walking through somewhere, and he sees it. And I feel like, by the way he reacts, it's like a breaking point for him. He's seen it time and time again as he's walked through there. And I don't know if you ever had one of those breaking points where you just can't take it anymore. I feel like that's what that moment was for him. Because he reacts. And then he's obviously scared after he reacts, because it was a gut reaction. Because if it was something that you wouldn't get in trouble for, you don't bury him in the sand. You don't try to hide it. You don't make sure no one else is around. He had the forethought to think, is anyone looking? So it wasn't just the passion of the moment, but it was partially there, but then it was partially the opportunity. So he was looking, I believe he was looking originally to help the Hebrew people, and that was just the opportunity he saw. He runs away, he hides, and then God calls him. And God says, I want you to go back. I want you to stand before Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. I feel like in that moment, Moses is seeing what his original intentions were, what his original hopes were. He's seeing where God's telling him, if it were me in my situations that I've seen, now's the time to do it. Now is the time. I need you to go. I need you to save your people. I need you to go back. You know, if you don't do it, who will? Who else has the position? Who else is going to be able to come in and say, I want to speak to Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh actually talk to them? Again, he was raised with the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh knew him. The Pharaoh wasn't like, who's this Hebrew guy? It's like, here's Moses. Yeah, I know Moses. He knew him. Who else that was Hebrew did the Pharaoh know? He was uniquely gifted for that moment in that time. Did he make mistakes? Yes. Did he mess up? Yes. Did he run away? Did he hide? Did he interject with God and say, no, 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 I can't do it? Yes. But I think that's part of the beauty of it, is that no matter if we've messed up, no matter what we've done, no matter where we've come from, God can still use us. I mean, Moses was a murderer, right? And he murdered someone. I don't think anyone in here would be like, murder's okay. Murder's fine. Like, if you just kill people occasionally, it's not a big deal. That's not going to be anyone's reaction to that. They're going to be like, murder is wrong. Like, if I ask a 3-year-old, I can go up to them, is killing someone bad? And they're going to say, yes. Like, it's never a gray area for us. But Moses did, and God still used them. It doesn't say how many years passed, but I imagine it was some time. I imagine if you've ever made a mistake, and that thought comes back to you, seems like every day, I imagine Moses had that day come back and replay through his head, what could I have done differently? What did I mess up with? How could I have done this? So now he gets a chance for redemption. He gets a chance to see the dream, and he's thinking, I've already messed this up. I've already gone too far. I messed too much up. I can't fix this. But God still uses him. So for you, you have to know that even if you've messed up, even if you've made mistakes, even if you've gone off the path that you feel you were supposed to be on, it's not too late. We can revive that original dream that God had given us, because if it was given to us by him, maybe he wasn't telling you no, maybe he was saying not yet. The church itself, I've told the story. When me and Kristen first felt called to start the church was years before we moved to Branson. And God moved us to Bolivar, which is an hour and a half north of here, in between the two. It wasn't God saying no, he was saying not yet. So we can revive that original dream because it's still there. The other thing that we can see is that we can't let the fear of failure kill your dreams. Moses is afraid to fail. Like, let's be honest, that is the whole point of saying no. If Moses knew that he could walk in there, they'd walk right out, he wouldn't say no. He'd be like, yeah, I can do this, I got this. No big deal. But he knows, standing before the Pharaoh, point one, he killed someone in the work for the Pharaoh, which is, you know what the punishment for killing someone normally is? Death, right? So he's going to go back to someone who wants to kill him and stand before him and say, hey, I know you want to kill me, but can you go ahead and let these other million people go while we're at it? He doesn't want to do that. He's afraid that he's going to go back, he's going to be killed himself, and that the punishment's going to be even harder for the people that he's trying to save. It's a fear of failure. We allow the fear of failure to affect us so much of the time, and we live there because, well, what if we mess up? You know, what if this happens? What if we make things worse? You know, I don't know, it could get a lot worse than it is, or we could really mess this one up. And we kind of stand back and we allow those things to keep us from moving forward. Sometimes we allow them to paralyze us. We allow them to keep us where we are and just say, I'm not going to move because if I mess this up, then this will happen, or if I mess that up, that will happen. And we constantly fight back and forth with ourselves. My biggest fear that I have to fight with is failure. I'm not afraid to do stupid things. I'm not afraid to do the things that'll get me in trouble sometimes. I'm not afraid of this. None of those do I care about? Like, none of those are like constant fears. What comes back to me, what care always gets me, is the care about fearing anything of failure. Because I will always fear failure, no matter what it is. If I take a second, it's like, okay, what if I mess this up? Does anyone go through their head with that? Anyone think about, what if I fail doing this? What have I ruined more so than by just not doing it in the first place? But we can't allow the fear of failure to kill our dreams. We can't allow it to hurt our dreams. We can't allow it to slow down our dreams. And sometimes, if we really look at it, failure only happens when we quit. Failure is only final when you quit. Because if you don't quit, you fail once, and you try again, and say you succeed on the 4th or 5th or 6th attempt. Even if you look at our president, Donald Trump, had multiple businesses that weren't successes, but he kept trying, and eventually found success through that. You can't fear the failure. If you look at almost any billionaire business person, businessman or woman, I'm willing to bet you they've had failed businesses. Almost all of them, unless they inherited it, and then that's a whole other story. But if they built the business themselves, they failed somewhere along the way. They could have stood back and say, I messed up, it's over, I'm going to take a 9 to 5 working for someone else, and I'm not going to try anymore. It'd be easy to say that, right? It'd be easy for us to not chase the dream. But we can't let the fear of failure stop us. Because failure is only final when we quit. With God, as we go through our life with Him, I think Ron was talking about this with new Christians, and you guys were talking about with Christians and prayers, and new Christians and kids, when they pray, they have such boldness to pray for things that as parents you say, no, you shouldn't pray for that. Don't pray for that. You shouldn't ask for that. We have this sense of worth in our wording versus who God is. It's like, I have to say it this way, I have to work this way. Because if I mess this prayer up, God won't come through, and then I will fail on this. But sometimes what we need to do is those little silly prayers that we have, just let God have it. Because those aren't bad. Praying without ceasing is one of those ways. If I don't know about you, but it's usually in those little times when it's like, I can't figure this out. God, help me see what I need to see in this. Or help me, if I'm struggling with what I'm looking through, I need this. And this is where it is. It's in those little prayers. You don't pray continually by sitting there with your eyes closed, looking at the Bible or on your knees. You can't pray continually that way. You'll never be able to pray continuously that way because you'll get nothing else done, or you'll be constantly distracted. Those little distractions of our mind are normal. For us, you're praying, and then you're in it 2-3 minutes, maybe you're in it for 30 seconds, and did I leave the dryer on? Is the stove still on after I got done with dinner? I need to check that. That's normal. But what we can't do is say that, okay, I messed up the prayer, now the prayer is over, and it's completely done. But what we can do is continue to pray. Okay, hold on, pull back, refocus. Because I'll admit, my prayers are kind of ADD. If someone else heard them, if someone else was listening to them, that's what you'll hear. Kind of jumping back and forth. It's over here, it's over there, I'm off topic, I'm in the middle. I don't know if anyone else prays that way. But I know I do. And it's okay because that's the way that, for one, it's conversation. You ever have a conversation with your best friend and you are not on one topic for more than 3 seconds? Me and a couple of my friends will be talking, and we will literally go from one topic to the next, then back to the topic, and back forward, and back this way and that way. And if you're not used to the conversation, you're sitting there thinking, I have no clue what they're even talking about. That's how our conversations with God should be. Because if that's how we talk to our most intimate friends, our closest friends, they know that this is our life, this is their life, and when you know each other so well that you can bounce from topic to topic to topic to topic, and it doesn't bother either of you, that's how our conversations with God are. If you've built that relationship there, you see it. But if you allow yourself to view prayer as a way that you're failing or you're succeeding, it's easier to quit than it is to push forward. If your dream is being halted and you feel like God is telling you no, or not yet, it's easier to say, well, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe that's a guy thing. Now I'm just not going to do it. And you don't want me to do it now, I'm just not going to do it. That's how we come to God with, this is the dream where you don't want me to do it now, I'll never do it. If I can't get it done right now, I'll never get it done. That's what we tell ourselves, that's what we tell God. But If he's telling us to wait, or if he is telling us to go, like he's telling Moses, now is the time to go, we have to be willing to take that chance. We have to be willing to take that dream. And we have to be willing to speak it boldly. I know it may sound crazy, but if Martin Luther King Jr. never would have stood in front of the masses, what difference would it have made to the movement that he started, that he was one of the leaders of? What difference would it make? If Moses himself did say no to God and say, I can't do this, and he didn't do it, how many years more would there have been slavery in Egypt for the Hebrews? It's the same with us. If God has given us that dream, it is a dream that we are shaped for. We are made for to fulfill that dream. It doesn't mean that you can't be someone else that comes down the line that can do what you were doing, because God does some pretty crazy things. But God is asking you to do it because you're uniquely equipped for that dream. And what I want us to do as we think about this, as we think forward and we think going along, is think past this week. It's, like I said, it's so easy to get stuck in the minutia of every day. Because I know when me and Kristen wake up in the morning, so what's going on today? What do you have today? Like, is there any group that you're meeting with after work? Or, when will you be off work? It's usually her asking me, what's the extra things you have to do beyond work? But we need to be able to look sometimes a little bit longer than today or tomorrow, but just kind of think, what is it that God is asking me to do that I am capable of doing? Or maybe it's you're not capable of doing. God's asking you to do something and you're not capable. Point here at me starting a church, I was not capable of that. Only way we got to this point is because of God. It was not by me or any shape or form by me. What has God called us to do? If you look at Moses and you read after, he says, okay, I'm going to go. He goes, he has his brother helping him, and his sister's there too. And there are times, if you read through the story of Exodus, there are ups and downs. They do great things, and then they do really stupid things. And it reminds you that they're human too. Because we usually do great things, and then we can do really stupid things. At least I do. And that's how we go forward. But they had a path. They had a goal of where they were going. We're going to this land from here. But the miracles that they performed, the plagues, those were miracles. I've never caused water to turn into blood. I've never made frogs come out of the sky. I've never done any of those things. I've never, held a stick and dropped it and it turns into a snake. And I'm really glad that has never happened. I've never done any of those things. So there were miracle after miracle throughout Moses' life. And it started with his initial failure that he had. So if God can use him, who can't God use? Moses wasn't young. You can look through Genesis and you'll see where God called the older man, hey, you're going to have a kid. You're barren, your wife's barren, you've never had kids. I'm too old to have kids. That's literally his response. I'm too old to have kids. What's God give him? A kid. They wanted a kid. It doesn't matter if you're barren. It doesn't matter if you're old. There's the kid. If you wanted this can happen. So we can see throughout the Bible where it doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, your past mistakes, your past failures. You can look at the New Testament. You can look at Saul. He's later known as Paul.